The next presentation will be something that is new even for me, because Andrea Moon, she's learning strategist, and she will basically talk about helpful tips about learning online. And I look forward to hear from her as well, because learning online or learning remotely is new for most of us. I mean, definitely for me as well. So I look forward to hear this and to learn something new, because as a new form of learning, new form of exchanging information, we need to also be prepared. So Andrea Moon, if you are here and if you're ready.
Hi, thank you, Professor Horvat, and thank you for welcoming me today, and welcome all of you to Ryerson as well. So I'm going to share with you some tips for learning effectively online in a short time that we have together. And then at the end, I'd like to point you towards some useful resources that you might wish to engage with should you want to delve a little bit deeper, including some hour-long workshops that we'll be hosting on this subject. So my name is Andrea Moon. I work in the learning support area of student learning support. I work with undergraduates and graduate students, and I'm part of a larger unit that encompasses writing support, graduate student support, thesis help, academic accommodation support, and so forth. And I wanted to start with some common concerns about online learning, or unpack some of these concerns that I think I've been hearing anecdotally, that certainly we've been reading about, and that you might have experienced last semester as well. First things first, we're all heading into this semester, and you all as new graduate students experiencing a double transition. So not only are you facing coming from potentially your master's degree into a PhD, or your undergraduate studies to your master's studies, or anywhere in between with a break. So you're transitioning, which is always a period of growth. And now we're also transitioning to an all online semester. We see the use of new technologies and applications, and if you're not familiar with them, now would be a good time to get familiar with them, and especially how they're going to be used in the classrooms or in your connections with your peers or other scholars in your community, like Google Meet and Hangouts. Very real one, the ability and stability of your internet connection, and your ability to connect in when it's important to for those synchronous learning experiences. And then maybe a bit of an elephant in the room for those of you who were undergraduates last semester, perhaps, not necessarily, perhaps less than ideal experiences this spring with the abrupt closure of schools across the world, really. And maybe there's some anxiety or trepidation or cynicism about online learning moving into the fall. I've read many articles referencing what we call emergency teaching, and that was kind of what was happening last semester. And now, while we're still, in a state of emergency, at least there's been time for us all to connect with teaching and learning experts and to provide a good experience online this semester. Creating homeschool schedules and boundaries is another concern I've heard about, and we'll go into that a little bit more. The ability to focus, certainly from home or wherever you've decided to work this semester. Sticking to a self-directed learning schedule. Notably, the impacts of isolation from other scholars and peers. So this is where you're going to be leveraging your communication skills and getting familiar with those platforms like Google Meet and Google Hangouts, so that you can create those connections for yourselves in a virtual world in the absence of being able to meet on campus for a coffee or in office hours and that type of thing. And certainly also sustaining motivation. So we acknowledge that it's going to be a challenging semester for all of us in the institution, for all of us scholars. And I want to start with saying it's going to help if we, I say you, but really if we all can commit this semester to being curious, engaged, connected, and resourceful. So with regard to being curious, this might mean considering that your learning needs might be different in an online environment than you may be used to, and asking yourself questions about how you're going to hold yourself accountable as you adjust to learning online. I've put down here just a number of practice things that you can do for yourself from home right now. So even before lectures begin, if they're going to be synchronous or asynchronous, try taking notes to them. Perhaps you can try taking an online test before classes begin and time yourself. Importantly, doing a test run or some sort of like dress rehearsal of your work from home or whatever your setup is, paying special attention to potential distractions or impediments that you can remove, control, or minimize. So this can be as simple as noticing that you don't have enough light in the area that you're working. So rearranging task lighting, maybe purchasing a fan if you notice that you're being distracted by the heat, or something more substantial like making sure your space is comfortable and that you have a proper chair. Also paying attention to potential distractions as well. I found to myself several times in meetings over the course of the summer, and I have a senior dog who occasionally only likes to snore, so I have to gently put him in another room while I'm doing important tasks. So familiarizing yourselves again with these platforms that your professors and peers will be using for class and communication will also be something you're going to want to be on top of. I put down showing up to class. Now, while we're not actually physically going into class, to the extent possible, it's crucial that we treat online courses and lectures, again, to the extent possible, like we would the in-person ones. And that means participating, engaging, certainly checking all your syllabi for expectations, or the availability of online discussion if that's relevant to your particular course, or other engagement opportunities. Making use of things like office hours and also being flexible with others. I want to spend a little bit of time on boundary setting, physical or otherwise, between your study space and time and your downtime. So I've kind of demarcated three types of boundaries we want to pay special attention to. So physical boundaries, meaning that dedicated space, and temporal boundaries as well. So temporal boundaries are going to be critical to your well-being. This is really particularly true because many of us are facing the challenge this semester of going to school, potentially also managing a part-time job, maybe integrating family responsibilities into our lives or dependent care, and also into the lives of our students. So we have a lot of balls. We're juggling a lot of balls this semester. And for those of you who might just be focusing on your coursework this fall, if you're not coming to campus regularly and maybe will be doing most of your work from home, we do really risk blurring that line between where is school, where is my dedicated study space, where is my home and my retreat, and how am I spending that with people who I may or may not live with. Obviously, sticking to a rigid schedule may prove unrealistic. But we can consider, for instance, what it would look like to go to campus this semester and think of all those kind of transition moments that we have from one part of our day to the next. So for some of us, it might be putting on clothes to go to work, or riding transit to get to school, or so forth. So now, for many of us, those things have been taken away. So it might be useful to cultivate what your own routines are going to look like as you transition from one phase of your day to another, so that you can provide adequate focus and adequate attention to the pieces in your lives that are all meaningful, right? But potentially separate. It will probably take you some time to figure out what works for you when you begin to integrate, the rhythm and the pace of your experiences as a graduate student at Ryerson in a completely online semester. So keep in mind that creating those clear temporal boundaries might depend on your ability also to coordinate with the people that you're living with as well. Okay, so we all know this one. Like, it's a struggle sometimes in regular times as well, right? So just emphasizing again that dedicated coursework and study times, but also keeping in mind a little bit of flexibility as well. Structure and routine are going to help you feel more in control. And the corollary to that is it's really hard to create structure and routine when we're in one place, most of us for days on end. And when routine looks very different during a global pandemic. But some of the things that we can be mindful of as we head into an online semester are things like, creating that same wake up time and go to bed time, certainly taking frequent breaks, be flexible and being kind to yourself. So as much as routines can be helpful given the uniqueness of the situation of online study, not putting too much pressure on yourself with regard to like outputs and productivity. So there's going to be a focus on prioritizing what needs to get done and taking care of what's essential day to day. And I'm going to show you a priority matrix in a moment that will help you make decisions about how to prioritize everything that you have going on in your life in general and in your life as students as well. If you don't have one of these already, I really highly recommend that you purchase one or make it part of your life and keep it in a place that you're going to refer to often. I know the Ryerson bookstore has them. I understand that they are delivering, so the store has turned into a completely online store. You can get them at Amazon, you can get them at Staples. You might have used something like this as part of your undergraduate careers. But this is going to be like kind of ground zero, really essential organizational tool for you to set an overview of your entire semester. How you might use something like this, simply go through all your course syllabi and populate it with any deadline that's not going to change. Also, maybe any important appointments that aren't going to be moved or family events, this type of thing. It really helps with your planning for your long-term goals and ultimately will help you populate something at a little more micro level. So that 4-month calendar, once you populate it, it's going to become really clear when those busy weeks or those super high volume weeks are coming down the pipes so that you can make a plan each week. This person's plan looks a little overwhelming. You don't have to plan your time hour by hour, but Google Calendar is a tool that we all have access to here through the Ryerson Google Suite. And I like it because you can color code. It doesn't matter what you're using as long as you are making some sort of plan. It also, makes no sense for some people to schedule their time hour by hour. It depends on what works for you, but certainly setting a couple of manageable, realistic objectives day to day, two to three, 2 to 4, will help you feel a sense of accomplishment and kind of power that motivation for you to complete the next tasks as well. This is the priority matrix. You may have seen it somewhere else, also referred to as Schopenhauer's grid, I believe, or some guy's name who starts with an S. I find this a useful tool for either during the week or just on a day-to-day basis to kind of get rid of that mind clutter and do a task dump of everything that you have on your mind that you think needs doing. So we see in the upper left-hand corner, we have items on our list that are really urgent and really important. So these items fall under things that you want to do like absolutely right now. They're time sensitive. Obviously, if you ignore them, it can result in big challenges. Most of the time, if you have tasks in this zone, they're unanticipated, or ideally they're unanticipated tasks, like maybe a dental emergency or a last minute addition to a project. And the reason why we like to not keep many things in the do now zone is that it's a very high stress zone. You do not want to live in the high stress zone. Ideally, we want to be in the upper right hand quadrant where we're planning to do things because we've made that 4-month calendar and we've set realistic specific objectives for ourselves week to week or day to day. So these items are obviously important to us, whether or not they're related to our coursework or our lives on a whole, and they're crucial to our long-term success. So we're planning for our term papers, for our lab papers, getting started on literature reviews, and etc. Making an appointment with the thesis advisor, making an appointment with someone from graduate student support. So we're booking all these things and we've allocated time for them. This is the zone that prevents stress because it's increasing your control over what you can do day to day. And this, I would say, is the zone you kind of want to live in, this zone where you're planning, but you're not you're not caught in a situation where you have to do everything right now. Now, the bottom two quadrants, I'll start with decide and delegate. So that's the bottom left-hand quadrant. So these items are urgent, or at least urgently require a response from you, but are not necessarily important items. So these tend to be tasks or projects that don't contribute to our long-term goals. And in deciding or delegating, it often means that you have to make a tough decision about what your time is worth, how much effort you're willing to put into it, and what value that task gives to you. So one example of this might be getting called for a last-minute shift at work, answering the phone when you're engaged in a task that requires that you focus a lot. So these types of things may involve compromise with yourself or with others. And then finally, in the bottom right-hand quadrant, we see tasks that we want to eliminate. They're not important, they're not urgent at the moment, they don't contribute to either long or short-term goals, and we all probably know what these look like. It's Netflix and online shopping, any sort of avoidance task, busy work, or make work projects. So something to consider. You can use a scrap piece of paper throughout the week or just during the day if you feel like you're in a high stress zone, so you can plot out what actually needs to be done. Being connected this semester, as you all know, over the past couple of months is exceedingly important. So find ways to connect with your peers and other scholars online. Maybe consider hosting or joining an online study group, reaching out for help when you need it by emailing your instructors, your peers. But again, keeping in mind flexibility and being realistic with expectations that you connect with. So some of your peers or colleagues may be working different hours, even within the same time zone because of dependent responsibilities or other home responsibilities, or because they're across time zones, so in different parts of the world. So kind of managing expectations around when you're going to get a response from people, and creating deadlines for group work, that type of thing. Getting and staying motivated this semester. It's what can we say about getting and staying motivated? This semester, like all others, we know that we're motivated by different things in life, being motivated to graduate, being motivated to get a grant, perhaps being motivated to get a piece of your thesis approved. What the research about motivation in general tells us that the more that we're able to draw upon intrinsic factors, so those factors that lie within us, like completing a task because it gives us a sense of meaning, or because we know we're mastering something, the task at hand or your coursework hopefully gives you a sense of accomplishment and is really tapping into the disposition of curiosity. Those are really strong motivating factors and kind of will help you plow through that 4-month calendar or that week-long calendar when things kind of seem blah. No judgment calls about, I'm not making any judgment or value judgments about extrinsic factors. They exist for all of us. We all are probably enrolled in these programs because we want the degrees that come from them or the employment, and there's a host of other extrinsic factors that people are motivated by, and a mix of both of them. The more, again, that we're able to draw upon the intrinsic factors, the smoother the road will be along the bumpy times, but the extrinsic factors are also there and realistic. So some things we can do to get and stay motivated throughout this semester. There are so few things that are within our sphere of control, but to the extent that we can take responsibility for our relationships, for our own well-being, by incorporating those healthy routines, our study schedule, how we're planning out our time, especially in this blurring of work and home space. Telling other people about your goals and checking in with them often, whether that's your instructor, whether that's someone else in your program, or even a family member. So you're creating potentially that extra layer of accountability and also maybe a built-in cheerleader as well. Maintaining a positive attitude. And I would add to this, acknowledging any kind of past setbacks. So if you have a terrible week and you feel like your productivity was extremely low or a terrible day, that's in the dead past. And there's always only the go forward from there. So acknowledging past setbacks. Positive visualization can help, and celebrating the little successes at this time when we're all under a little bit more stress maybe than usual. I will end with pointing you towards some resources that might be helpful for you. We know that some courses work very well online, but not all courses shift as easily to online formats. So Learning Support has created a number of resources that are available on the website, ryerson.ca/SLS. Topics include everything from open book exam strategies, take-home exam strategies, self-paced time management modules. And we also have several easy to follow how-to guides for Google Hangouts, Meets, Skype, that type of thing. Our list of academic skills workshops, this is by no means exhaustive. This is some of the ones that address what we chatted about briefly today. They're offered at least once a month throughout the fall semester. You can register for them at the link below. And I understand that you will also be speaking to Mira, who works in our writing and graduate student support area, who will talk to you about writing at the graduate level and thesis support and writing appointments that are available for you remotely online. I wish you all the very best this semester. Welcome to Ryerson, and I hope to see you on the 4th floor of the SLC once we get there.